The moment I saw $0 staring back at me from my savings account, it felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped away 8 years of my life. 3 days earlier, I had smiled through my father's 60th birthday celebration. 3 days later, I discovered that the man everyone called honest had emptied every dollar I'd saved for my first home. And the worst part? He didn't even try to hide it. Before I tell you how my own father justified stealing my future, I want to ask you something. If you've ever trusted someone who betrayed you simply because they were family, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Every like helps this story reach someone who needs to hear they're not alone. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? My name is Renee Chapman. I'm 32, and until that week, I believed blood meant loyalty. Growing up in Denver, I was raised with one lesson repeated so often it became part of my identity. Family comes first. My father, Richard Chapman, spent decades working as a respected bank manager. My mother, Linda, constantly reminded me that sacrifices for family were never sacrifices, they were responsibilities. My younger brother, Derek, was always treated like the family's investment. Whenever he failed, someone else was expected to rescue him. That someone was usually me. I worked through college, earned scholarships, built a successful career as a data analyst, and quietly saved every extra dollar. Meanwhile, every family emergency somehow landed on my shoulders. A leaking roof. Medical bills. My brother's tuition. A failed business venture. Every phone call ended the same way. You're the successful one, Renee. Family helps family. Over the years, I handed them more than $80,000 without asking for anything in return. Not because I was forced. Because I believed that's what good daughters did. There was one mistake, though, one decision I never imagined would destroy everything. When I was 17, my father convinced me to keep his name on my savings account just in case of an emergency. Years later, a bank employee even asked if I wanted to remove him. I almost said yes. But after one guilt-filled phone call from Dad, I apologized, and left his name exactly where it was. That single decision would cost me every cent I'd worked 8 years to save. On a Tuesday morning at work, my banking app flashed a transaction notification. I opened it without thinking. Then my heart stopped. Balance, $0. I called the bank with shaking hands. The representative spoke one sentence that changed my life forever. The transfer was authorized by the co-owner of your account. Richard Chapman. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I kept waiting for the bank representative to laugh and tell me there had been a mistake. Instead, she calmly explained that every dollar in my savings had been transferred to another account the previous day. The amount? Just over $140,000. 8 years of skipped vacations, overtime, old cars, homemade coffee, and saying maybe next year, to myself, gone with a few clicks. I drove straight to my parents' house. Dad opened the door looking almost as if he'd been expecting me. "We need to talk," I said. He stepped aside without surprise. Before I could ask another question, he folded his arms and said, "I know why you're here." My stomach twisted. "So, you admit it?" I transferred the money. No apology. No hesitation. Just 4 words. "Why?" I whispered. He sighed as though I were the one being unreasonable. Derek was drowning in debt. If I didn't help him, he would have lost everything. I stared at him. "So you stole my future to save his?" His expression hardened. "It wasn't stealing. It was family." Then my mother walked into the room. "Honey, your brother needed help. You have a great career. You'll earn that money back." I felt every childhood memory suddenly make sense. Every time Derek failed, I paid. Every time I succeeded, it became another reason they expected more from me. I reminded Dad that the money wasn't his. He looked me directly in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. "I raised you. Everything you have started because of me. I simply used what the family needed." Those words didn't break me. They woke me up. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their emergency fund. As I left the house, my phone buzzed with an email from the bank containing the transfer confirmation. I opened the document. My name appeared on the authorization form. Except I had never signed it. Someone had forged my digital signature. My hand started shaking again. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a crime. That night I called my longtime friend Marcus, a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud. After hearing everything, he became unusually quiet. Finally, he said, "Renee, if your father forged that authorization, this isn't just about stolen money anymore." I swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I'm saying your father may have committed multiple felonies, and if we don't act fast, you could lose any chance of getting your money back." Marcus didn't waste another second. "You have less than 72 hours to challenge the transaction," he warned. "After that, recovering your money becomes much harder." Fear turned into determination. The next morning, I asked my coworker Carla, a digital forensics specialist, to examine the bank's authorization file. Less than an hour later, she called me into her office. "The signature wasn't created from any of your devices," she said, pointing at her screen. "The IP address traces back to a house in Lakewood. My parents' address." Then she looked at me with sympathy. "Renee, someone accessed your account while you were asleep." The room felt suddenly smaller. With Carla's forensic report, the forged documents, and my bank records in hand, I met with Detective Sarah Mitchell from the Financial Crimes Unit. She carefully reviewed every page before looking up. "This is more than a family dispute," she said. "This appears to be identity theft, forgery, and bank fraud." Hearing those words out loud made everything real. I still hoped my father would make things right. So I gave my parents one final chance. "Return every dollar within 24 hours, I told my mother over the phone. "If you don't, I'll file criminal charges." She burst into tears. "You'd send your own father to prison over money?" "No," I replied quietly. "I'm reporting him for stealing my identity." The next day came. No apology. No money. Only more phone calls accusing me of destroying the family. I closed my laptop for a moment, took one deep breath, then opened it again. Without hesitation, I filed the official police report. I had no idea that this decision would expose an even darker secret, one that would shock my entire family in front of dozens of witnesses. Within days, everything started moving faster than I expected. The bank's fraud department confirmed that the transfer had been authorized using a forged digital signature, and Detective Sarah Mitchell called to tell me they had enough evidence to move forward. "There will be an arrest," she said. "The only question is, when?" I thought about it for a long time. The easy choice was to let the police arrest my father quietly at home. But then I remembered something that made my blood boil. My brother Derek had just announced a lavish housewarming party on Facebook. He proudly thanked everyone for supporting his hard work and invited friends, relatives, and neighbors to celebrate his beautiful new apartment. I knew exactly where the down payment had come from. My stolen savings. The same money I'd spent 8 years earning. I looked at the invitation one last time before calling Detective Mitchell. "There will be more than 40 guests," I said calmly. "Saturday evening, that's when he'll be there." Saturday arrived. The apartment was packed with smiling faces, music, expensive food, and endless compliments for Derek. My father stood proudly in the middle of the room, telling everyone how important it was to invest in family. No one knew the truth. At least, not yet. Just before 7 o'clock, my Aunt Helen quietly asked Derek where he'd gotten the money for such an expensive apartment. His confident smile faded. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. The room fell silent. Derek opened the door. 2 uniformed police officers stepped inside, followed by Detective Mitchell. "We're here for Richard Chapman." Every conversation stopped. My father tried to stay calm, insisting there had been a misunderstanding. Then Detective Mitchell spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. "Richard Chapman, you're under arrest for identity theft, forgery, and bank fraud." Gasps echoed through the apartment. My mother's face lost all color. Derek stood frozen, unable to say a single word. The handcuffs clicked around my father's wrists. That sound seemed louder than every conversation that had filled the apartment just moments earlier. As officers escorted him toward the door, Detective Mitchell explained that the investigation had confirmed he forged my identity and stole more than $140,000 from my savings account. The celebration collapsed instantly. Guests who had arrived to congratulate Derek now stared at him with disappointment and disgust. Some quietly walked out. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Within minutes, the apartment that had been full of laughter felt painfully empty. When I finally walked inside, every pair of eyes turned toward me. My mother pointed at me through tears. "You ruined this family." I looked around the silent room before answering. "No," I said. "I didn't ruin this family. I simply refused to let the truth stay hidden any longer." No one answered after I spoke. The silence inside Derek's apartment was heavier than any argument. One by one, the remaining guests picked up their coats and left without another word. The celebration was over. The truth had replaced every lie my parents had spent years protecting. My Uncle Thomas slowly walked toward me, holding the folder of evidence Detective Mitchell had shown everyone. His voice trembled. "Renee, I believed your father. He told us you were unstable and making false accusations. I should have asked for your side of the story. I'm sorry." I nodded. That's all I ever wanted, someone to listen. Derek finally looked at me. "I didn't know Dad forged your signature." "You may not have known how he did it," I replied, "but you knew that money wasn't yours. And you still accepted it." He lowered his head. For the first time in years, he had no excuses. A few weeks later, the legal process came to an end. Faced with overwhelming evidence, my father accepted a plea agreement. The court ordered him to repay every dollar he had taken, and the fraudulent loan opened in my name was removed from my credit record. Not long afterward, the full $140,000 was deposited into a brand new bank account, one that belonged to me alone. No joint owner. No hidden access. No second chances. A few months later, I stood in front of a beautiful home in a quiet Denver neighborhood, holding a set of keys I'd dreamed about for nearly a decade. It wasn't just a house. It was proof that someone else's betrayal didn't have to become the ending of my story. Aunt Helen was the first person I invited over. She handed me a small rose plant and smiled. "Every home deserves something beautiful to grow." We planted it together in the backyard. As I covered the roots with fresh soil, I realized something. For years, I believed loving my family meant sacrificing my peace, my money, and even my future. I was wrong. Real love doesn't demand that you destroy yourself to save someone else. Real family doesn't steal your dreams and call it sacrifice. And forgiveness doesn't mean allowing the same people to hurt you again. Today, I no longer carry anger. I carry boundaries. Some people say I destroyed my family. I see it differently. The truth didn't destroy my family. The choices they made did. I simply stopped protecting those choices. If there's one lesson my story leaves behind, it's this. Never let guilt convince you to accept abuse. Never confuse loyalty with surrender. And never believe that sharing someone's blood means you owe them your future. Sometimes the bravest decision you'll ever make isn't fighting for your family. It's finally choosing yourself. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that healthy boundaries are not selfish, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be silently living through the same kind of betrayal. And remember, the strongest families are built on trust. The strongest people are built by learning when to walk away.